Lesson 9-2, multiplying and factoring. Today's objectives, we're going to learn to multiply a polynomial by a monomial and to factor a monomial with a polynomial. And we'll discuss each of them. Example 1 is pretty simple. We've learned how to multiply numbers. So we're going to multiply the big numbers together. So you're going to take your negative 4 times 5, which would be negative 20. And then you take your y, and then we're going to add the exponents. So 2 plus 4, which would be 6. And then you're going to do the next one. So negative 4 times negative 3, because you have this minus sign. So negative 4 times negative 3 makes it a positive. And that would be a positive 12, and then y, and then add the exponents, which would be 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then you do your last one, which would be negative 4 times 2, which would be negative 8. And then the last one does not have any variables, but you still add on the variable that's attached to the monomial on the outside, so that would be y squared. And here is your answer. If we look at B, we will do the same thing. 4 times 5, which is 20. And then we have B. And then there's a hidden exponent of a 1. So then we do 1 plus 2, which would be 3. And then we do 4, that hidden 1 that's in front of the B, so we'll do 4 times 1, which is 4, so that makes it a positive. And then the exponent on that B would be 1, so it would be 1 plus 1, which would be 2. And then we have 4 times 6, which is 24. And then there's no variables on the 6, but there is on the B, on the 4, so it will just be B. And there's your answer. That is example 1. Example 2. We are now going to do the opposite. They gave us the answer, and now we have to turn it into a multiplication problem. But we'll start with example 2. Is just tell me what the greatest common factor is. Greatest common factor is what number and how variables are in all that can be in all of the numbers given to us. So if I look, our numbers are 4, 12, and 8. What's the highest number that can go into both 4, 12, and 8? Well, I know 2 can. But if I think about it, 4 also can. So that's my highest number. So I'm going to put 4. And now I'm done with the numbers. Now I'm going to do the variables. And there is an x on each one of those. So I know there's going to be at least an x. But on this time, I need to find the smallest x there is. And that's the last one, which is x to the first. So here is your answer to that. And that's all we're doing on example 2. All you're doing is telling me what the greatest common factor is. B. Well, again, we're starting off with the numbers 5 and 10. Well, the greatest number that can go into both 5 and 10 is 5. And then the variables, you have v to the 5th and v to the 3rd. Well, there's v on both, so I can say v. And then the smallest amount we have is cubed, so then that would be it. So it would be 5v cubed. All right, example 3. This time we are going to we're going to do the greatest common factor first, so we're going to do our GCF first. That's our first step. So we'll start with that on A. So I'm going to find a number that goes into 3, 12, and 15, which would be 3. And I noticed that there is an x on each one of the numbers, so I'm going to do x. And my lowest number is just x to the first, so that's it. So the second step, put a parenthesis. It's really easy. So I'm going to put a parenthesis. Step 3, third step, divide. So I'm going to do this right underneath it so you can see how I'm dividing. So first of all, I'm going to go 3 on the first one. We're starting with this one. So we go 3 divided by 3 is 1. You don't need to put the 1, but it helps. And then I have 3 here and 1 here. So if you remember in chapter 8, you subtracted the exponents. So it's going to be 3 minus 1, which would be x to the second power, or x squared. Then you put the sign they gave you, minus. And now next one is 12 divided by 3, which would be 4. And then we subtract the exponents, so 2 minus 1 is 1. So I still have an x. And then I put the sign, which is plus on this one. Then I go 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then if I do the exponents, I have 1 minus 1, which is 0. If you remember, any variable or any number to the power of 0 is 1. So it goes away, and you're going to put a parenthesis. So step 4. Fourth step. Parenthesis. All right. Let's try B. So I need to find a number that goes into 6, 24, and 32. I don't know. Does 6 go into 32? I know it goes into 24, and I know it goes into 30, but it doesn't go into 32. So it can't be 6, can't be 4, so it must be 2. So I'm going to do 2. And then I look at the smallest amount of exponents, since there's an m for everything. So it's m squared is my smallest amount. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit so you can see that. 2m squared. Then I'm going to divide each term by 2m squared. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then I subtract the exponents, so 5 minus 2 is 3. Then I put a plus sign because the sign is plus. And then 24 divided by 2 is 12. And then I do 3 minus 2 is 1. And then I have a minus sign. That's my next sign. And 32 divided by 2 is 16. And then I have 2 minus 2, which is 0. So there aren't any variables, and there's your answer. And that's the end of this lesson.